Hey MS Rockstars, this is Coach Justin, and no, this is not trick photography. This is San Diego in October. So we're pretty lucky here to have this awesome weather so we can do our Rockstar workouts every Tuesday night. But before we get to the workout, we need to make sure that we warm up. And as a coach, I've had a lot of questions about warming up, what to do, this and that. And a few of those questions that have really just stayed through and been asked over and over again are the following. Number one, should I stretch before I work out? Number two, if I'm just gonna run, isn't running itself a good enough warm-up? And the third question I receive a lot is, well, how much warming up should I do? I don't wanna be tired for my workout. I don't wanna be tired for my race. So we'll get to that in the next few minutes, and then we'll go through a few demonstration videos. So the first question, should I stretch? The answer to that is yes and no. You should stretch properly before you do a warm-up. And the old days of just going here and going to here and talking to your buddies about what you've been up to the whole week before your Saturday run, probably not good enough. The two controversial aspects of stretching is, should I do dynamic or should I do static? The difference between those is dynamic is taking your joints through a greater than normal range of motion while you're moving, whereas static is going through a greater than normal range of motion without moving. For example, a static hamstring stretch looks like this, whereas a dynamic hamstring stretch looks like this. So I like to answer some questions with questions, and that's, are you static or are you dynamic when you're running? Hopefully you answer dynamic. So by that definition, we should do a dynamic stretch or dynamic movements prior to any workout that actually involves moving. So the second question is, if I'm gonna run, isn't a jog or just building up pace good enough? And the answer to that is probably not, because most of us sit all day and then it's 5:30, we go home, it's like, I gotta get that 30 minutes time on feet, and we go from there straight into a run. Well, if you've been sitting all day, or even if you've been moving limitedly, chances are your body's tight, your joints are tight, your calves, knees, hips, upper back are all really tight. And so if we're going through that jog, we're probably not properly warming up the system. We're not going to have the required range of motion to work out in that relatively pain-free zone. So once again, we go back to that, taking the joints through a greater than normal range of motion through some dynamic movements, which, as I said, we'll get to in a few minutes. So the last question is, how much warming up should I do? I don't want to be tired. Well, if you've ever started out on a run, if you ever hopped up and chased your kid around the room, you notice your heart rate spikes up right away. Then after anywhere from 2 to 6 minutes, that heart rate will come back down, and then all of a sudden it seems like things get easier. So that's sort of that flight or fight response, and we want to not start our warm-up, or start our workout while we're still in that fight or flight response. We want to let that dissipate and then start. So yes, you should be breathing a little bit hard. Yes, your body temperature should be increased. And yes, your heart rate should be elevated when you start your workout. In fact, sometimes we have our athletes who are panting and down here like this before we start our running intervals. And to us, that's perfect. Because if we make your workout seem hard, race day is going to seem easy. So to summarize, a warm-up should involve a toe to head stretching, dynamic stretching, really just taking the joints through a greater than normal range of motion in all three planes. So that means some front to back movements, some rotational movements, and some side to side movements, which again we'll get to in this next video.